Every civilization we have ever found that lasted was held together by a sword at the top of a pyramid. Every single one. The Indus Valley broke that rule, and no one has adequately explained why. From roughly 2600 to 1900 BCE, more than 1 million people spread across modern-day Pakistan and northwestern India. They built cities so precisely planned that early archaeologists assumed they were looking at 20th century reconstructions. They used standardized weights accurate to a fraction of a gram across a territory the size of Western Europe, and they left behind no temples to a god king, no victory monuments, no images of rulers, none. The record is not incomplete, it is consistent. What it consistently shows is a society that organized staggering complexity without coercion. That is not an absence of evidence, that is evidence of an absence. Let's read what is actually there. Mohenjo-Daro, excavated beginning in 1921 by R.D. Banerjee. Population at its peak between 40,000 and 80,000 those, larger than any contemporary city in Mesopotamia. A grid of streets oriented to cardinal directions, multi-story mud brick homes with private bathrooms, a municipal drainage system so sophisticated it would not be matched in Europe until Rome, 2,000 years later. No palace district, no royal burial ground, no weapons cache, no monument to any individual human being. Harappa, 600 kilometers northeast, near identical layout, same street grid, same standardized brick ratio, 1.24, used across every settlement archaeologists have found. Not similar, identical, across 1.5 million square kilometers. Nobody stumbles into that. You do not get uniform brick ratios across a territory that size by accident. You get them through coordinated decision-making at scale, but the record offers no warlord who enforced it, no priesthood that mandated it, no administrative citadel from which orders descended. The infrastructure exists. The authority structure does not. That distinction is not a footnote. That distinction is the entire mystery. Thousands of objects recovered from Harappan sites. Let's look at the inventory. Ceramic seals, over 4,000, many bearing a script still undeciphered. Standardized copper weights matching a binary scale, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, up to 12,800 units. Terracotta figurines, jewelry, agricultural tools. Dice, the oldest known in human history, found at Harappa, dated to approximately 2500 BCE. Weapons, a small number of copper spearheads and arrow tips. Scholars classify them as hunting tools. Not one site has produced a weapons cache consistent with an organized military. Not one mass grave suggesting battlefield casualties. Not one defensive wall oriented toward another Harappan city. Contemporary Mesopotamian sites from the same period contain cylinder seals depicting armies, hymns to warrior kings, mass graves with sacrificed attendants buried beside rulers. The contrast is not subtle. In the 1940s, Sir Mortimer Wheeler examined skeletal remains at Mohenjo-Daro and declared signs of massacre, evidence, he said, of Aryan invasion. The story held for half a century. Then Kennedy and others re-examined those same bones in 1994. No evidence of violence, none. The massacre narrative was preferred. The bones were not consulted until much later. That has never sat right with me. How do you coordinate 1 million people across 1.5 million square kilometers without a visible coercive authority? The standard model says you cannot. You need a pharaoh, a lugal, a warlord, someone whose power to punish creates the incentive for compliance. That model is built almost entirely on Egypt and Mesopotamia. We have looked at both on this channel. The Indus Valley does not fit. And rather than revise the model, most institutions quietly moved on. But the evidence does not move on. It sits there. Granaries at Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, large, centrally located, showing signs of systematic processing. Grain arriving, being measured by those standardized weights, being redistributed, not taxed upward to a court, moved laterally through a population. The undeciphered Indus script appears most frequently on trade seals, objects used to mark goods in transit, not proclamations, not religious commandments, commercial coordination. This looks less like a state and more like an operating system, one that ran largely without modification for 700 years. 700 years without a king, without a visible army, without a single monument to individual glory. And that was never explained. Not because the evidence is ambiguous, but because nobody centered the question. What ended it points somewhere most institutions still prefer not to look. By 1900 BCE, Harappan urban centers were declining, not conquered, not burned, depopulating slowly over roughly 2 centuries as people migrated east and south toward the Ganges Plain. Geologist Liviu Gheosan's 2012 study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, identified a probable cause. Monsoon weakening over a 200-year period dried the river systems that fed Harappan agriculture. No army, no siege. The rain stopped coming. But here is what stays with me. A society built on coercion does not disperse quietly. It collapses violently, with records of the catastrophe, lists of grievances, carvings of last stands, burned palaces. The Harappan departure left none of that. The cities were abandoned in good order, drainage systems intact, homes unburned. The pottery styles, the craft traditions, the measurement systems, all absorbed into successor cultures across the subcontinent. The knowledge did not disappear, it redistributed. A population not dependent on any central authority for its identity or survival. When the center became untenable, the people left, intact, carrying what they knew. That is not how subjects of a kingdom behave. That is how participants in a system behave. The Indus Valley does not present us with a mystery about where the rulers were. It presents us with proof that for 700 years, 1 million people built and maintained the most sophisticated urban infrastructure in the ancient world. Without them, the record is clear on what was present, equally clear on what was not. Hierarchical dominance was not a prerequisite for complexity. It was a choice. And at least one civilization, for 7 centuries, chose differently. Next, we go to Göbekli Tepe. Massive symbolic architecture, coordinated labor, deliberate burial. No agriculture, no cities, no civilization by any definition we currently use. If the Indus Valley challenges when power became necessary, Göbekli Tepe challenges whether complexity required settlement at all. Subscribe. That one is waiting for you.